All right, today we're going on a historical detective mission, tracing the deep, surprising origins of one of the world's most influential ideas. We are heading way, way back to a world that existed long before the Bible was even written, to uncover a story that honestly might just change how you see everything that came after.
And this whole journey really hangs on one single powerful question. What if the idea of one all-powerful God didn't just appear out of thin air? What if it actually evolved from a much larger and much older family of deities?
To even begin to answer that, we have to look at a really unexpected family tree. Now, scholars have a name for the ancient world that birthed this tree. They call it the Canaanite matrix, and trust me, it's the key to understanding all of this.
Now pay close attention to the wording here. The Canaanite matrix wasn't just some vague background noise. The sources call it the direct theological parent of ancient Israel's religion. That's not a casual influence, right? That implies a direct inheritance, a family connection, not some clean break from the past.
And this idea kicks off a huge debate among scholars. Did Israelite religion just appear suddenly, a kind of radical new revelation from on high? Or did it evolve, organically, from right inside its Canaanite cultural home? Well, the overwhelming consensus, based on decades of digging and reading ancient texts, points straight toward indigenous evolution.
So if it evolved, that means it has roots, a kind of cultural DNA that we can trace back even further. Before the Canaanites as we usually think of them, this lineage connects to an even earlier group of West Semitic people, the Amorites.
You see, the Amorites spread all across the ancient Near East during the Middle Bronze Age, and they brought their traditions with them. They had this prominent god, they practiced a form of ecstatic prophecy, and they worshipped a goddess who was a divine consort. Now keep all these pieces in your mind, because they're going to become super important later on.
So let's zoom in on their god, Amiru. He was a storm god, and his big title was Lord of the Mountain, or Bil Shaddai. If that sounds familiar, it should. It's a direct linguistic cousin to the famous biblical name El Shaddai. He was often shown holding a shepherd's staff, a really potent symbol for leadership, and his partner, a goddess named Asheratu, the direct forerunner of the goddess Asherah. You can already see the connections starting to pile up.
But the real, honest-to-goodness game changer, the discovery that gave us a crystal-clear blueprint of the divine world Israel inherited, it came from the ruins of an ancient city called Ugarit. The texts they found there, they were like the missing link everyone had been searching for.
In these Ugaritic texts, we meet the head honcho of the pantheon, a god named El. Think of him as the wise, elderly CEO of the divine corporation. He's the creator, the president of the divine council, and get this, his name, El, literally became the generic word for God, and eventually a proper name for the God of Israel.
But, while El was the chairman of the board, the real hero of the myths, the main character, was Baal. He was the young, powerful, energetic storm god. And his whole story is about his epic battle to become king by defeating the sea god Yam, who was basically the personification of primordial chaos. This type of epic battle even has a name, the Chaoskampf, the struggle against chaos to bring order to the universe.
And this is just a brilliant illustration of that inheritance I was talking about. On the left, you've got the Canaanite myth of Baal conquering the sea. And on the right, you have multiple passages in the Hebrew Bible, in places like Psalms and Isaiah, where Yahweh does the exact same thing, battling sea monsters named Leviathan or Rahab. It's the same story pattern, the same blueprint, just retold for a new hero.
And of course, there was a divine feminine presence. Asherah was the consort of the high god El. She was considered the mother of all the other major gods, who were known as the 70 sons of God. And here's the crucial part. Her worship didn't just vanish. As we're about to see, it stuck around deep into early Israelite religion.
Okay, so we have this fully established divine world, right? We've got El, we've got Baal, Asherah, all the other gods. So where in the world does Yahweh fit into all this? Well, the answer is in how their divine world was structured, like a formal council.
Yeah, the Canaanite pantheon was basically a celestial bureaucracy. At the very top, you had El and Asherah, the supreme rulers. Right below them were the major deities, the sons of God, which included guys like Baal. Then you had a tier of craftsman gods, and finally at the bottom were the messengers, or malachim, which is the root word for angels. This four-tiered structure was the blueprint for heaven.
Now this is a bombshell. This quote comes from the oldest known version of the book of Deuteronomy, which we found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now listen, later scribes actually changed this text, but the original is just breathtaking. It says that the Most High God, Elyon, divided up the nations of the world among his divine sons, and he assigned the people of Israel to be Yahweh's personal slice of the pie.
Let that sink in for a second. The implication here is massive. In the earliest layers of Israel's own tradition, Yahweh was not the supreme creator God of the universe. He was one of El's sons, a junior member of the divine pantheon who was assigned a specific group of people to look after.
And if you're thinking, okay, that's just one old text, well, we've got the receipts from the ground itself. This inscription, found in the Sinai desert from the early Israelite period, is a blessing. And it blesses the reader in the name of Yahweh of Samaria and by his Asherah. It is the smoking gun, showing that early Israelites worshipped Yahweh right alongside a divine consort, just like all his Canaanite peers.
So, how on earth did we get from Yahweh as a junior god with a wife to the one and only transcendent creator of the entire universe? The best way to really get your head around this huge theological shift is to think about it like a computer's operating system.
Think of the whole Canaanite religious structure as the shared OS for the entire region. Everybody understood its rules and its logic. Early Yahwism didn't come in and install a brand new system. It started out as just a new app running on that same familiar platform. But then, over a few hundred years, that one little app started an aggressive, well, a hostile takeover. First, Yahweh began to merge with the other top gods, absorbing El's job as creator and Baal's job as the Storm King warrior. Next, the rival gods were demoted. They were recast as lower-level angels or, in some cases, as demons. Then, the divine consort Asherah was systematically scrubbed from the religion. And finally, the system update was complete. Yahweh was declared the one and only God, and the memory of the old operating system was basically erased.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The realization that this faith grew out of a whole divine family. Well, it's not just some dusty historical footnote. It pushes us to ask a final, really crucial question. How does understanding this slow, complex, messy evolution of an idea reshape our view of history, of scripture, and of belief itself?